All right, so we are going to begin our discussion on effective pollination techniques. Okay, so let me say that for the pollination to be effective, everything we discuss in the pre-pollination techniques, you have to ensure that. Okay, so it's important because if you pollinate without making sure the pre-pollination techniques are well taken care of, you might even have the problem of disease on farm. So proper farm management and farm sanitation is very important to ensuring that your cacao after pollination is converted into pods and then into the beans that you're looking for. So now let's begin right away with the pollination techniques. Okay, so we'll just begin right away. So we'll begin with the structure of the flower. I talked a little about this earlier, so it's just an overview again. So we have over here, you can see there, it's called the anther. Okay, so this carry the pollen grains, or call it the sperm of the flower. And over here, we have the ovary. Okay, the ovary is there. So the ovary carries the eggs. Okay, so the pollen grains need to fertilize the ovary here, or the ovules. What is inside is the ovule. The whole thing is the ovary. Okay, but the problem in cacao is that the female part, which is the style, and then the tip here is the stigma. Because the male part is lower than the female part, naturally self-pollination does not take place. And even if it takes place, most of cacao flowers are self-incompatible. And what that means is that if the pollen from this anther falls here, the whole flower is going to die. Okay, so usually pollination happens by cross-pollination. So pollination in cacao is a result of cross-pollination. Okay, so that is one thing that you should know. Okay, so as you can see here in this part, what this means is this. If a fruit has 40 seeds, it means that 40 pollen grains fertilize 40 ovules. Okay, so the amount of pollen that will fall on the stigma is very important simply because it determines the number of seeds which are going to be formed inside the pod. That is why we have to take pollination very, very serious. Okay, so I'm going to begin with enhancing natural pollination because if you have very, very big farm, like 10 hectares, like 20 hectares, it's very difficult to pollinate the whole farm, even though it's possible. However, if you can enhance natural pollination, okay, that could be a very good way to go. All right, so let's begin. So these are some recommendations. Do not remove the leaves that fall to the ground from the cacao from the shade trees. So on the farm, you are going to have a lot of leaves, okay, in the base of the trees. Please don't remove them. This is because the leaf layer, okay, on the ground provide hope for the pollinators. So earlier on, we made mention about midges. Naturally, midges are the only insect that pollinate cacao, and it's estimated more than 60% of the pollination on the cacao is as a result of those insects. Okay? So the leaf in the leaves and the rotten matter at the base of the cacao. And that is why you don't have to remove the leaves. And then number two, insecticide or toxic substances kill pollinating midges. Okay? So try to avoid using chemicals or at least reduce chemicals on cacao plantation. You have to avoid or reduce chemicals on the farm. I know sometimes it's not really practical or except you want to have organic farm. Usually you use some kind of chemical on the farm. But my advice is that reduce chemical use as much as possible. Okay, then grow shade trees, fruit trees and bananas throughout cacao grove so that the temperature will be cool and the midge can reproduce, grow and fly. So earlier on, I made mention that usually for pollination to flowers to begin to set well, the farm temperature should be around 22 degrees Celsius. Okay, so to make this possible, you need to have shade trees and some bananas that are in the farm to reduce the amount of heat that is coming from the sun on the farm. So do not completely eliminate shade trees. Okay? So because they retain rainwater as well, and then like mosquitoes, the midges lay their eggs in the water that are collected in those decaying matter, decaying matter, organic matter leaves. On a farm, that is where the midges lay their eggs. Okay, so take note of this. Provide more places for the midges to lay their eggs. In cut stems, bananas, okay, into this shell, and then you distribute them on the farm. So you can plant bananas in various places in the farm. Okay, back at home, that is what we do. We have a lot of, usually when we have the plantation, we leave some spaces in the farm, and that places is devoted for growing bananas only. The small area, like an area of a room, okay, and then we plant bananas there. So those areas become the breeding ground for the midges. Okay, and from time to time, banana, the tree or the stems are cut and then sliced and distributed. So as those banana stalks, the banana stems begin to decompose, okay, the midges have places to lay eggs. Okay, so this is what I have made mention of. Okay, so it is best to keep those banana or plantains stem slices around throughout the year, especially during month when the cacao is flowering. So try to keep the banana stalk on the farm, I mean on the entire year, okay, and most especially during flowering season because that also becomes the breeding season of the midges. Okay, so our goal in natural pollination is to proliferate the growth or the numbers of midges on the farm. Okay, like I told you, you can rely on bees. Okay, because of the nature of the flower, bees naturally don't cacao. So your goal is to enhance the number of midges proliferation on a farm so that at the end of the day, your farm will be populated by so many midges and the farm will be naturally pollinated. Okay, now let's look at artificial pollination, which is a backup. Okay, it's a backup for natural pollination. There are problems that we cannot actually eliminate. So it's very important that we get backups in case you don't get the results you are looking for. Don't forget your farm is your business. And then you have to create things to happen. You don't wait for nature to determine how much of what you need to have on the tree. That's one thing you have to understand if you are into business. And then into business, it means that you have to make things happen far. So take everything into your hands. Make sure is being done well. Okay, so let's move on. So hand pollination can be done like this. Okay, pick a flower from the father tree, remove the petals, revealing the anthers. Okay, again, the anthers, that is where the pollen grains or the male part is formed or is found. Okay, and then rub it on the stigma, style of the flower, the mother tree. So you pick the flower from the father, you remove the petals, and then you rub the anther on the stigma of the mother flower. Okay, so we are going to look at the process. So as you can see in this photo, okay, the flower up here, that is the mother flower. And the flower down here is the father flower. So it's about rubbing the anther, which has the pollen grains, on the stigma of the mother here. Okay, and when this is done, pollination is going to take place, and then you are going to have pod produced out of him. Every flower is going to produce one pod. Okay, all right. So let's continue. Step one. So what you do is you select the mother flower you want to pollinate. Okay, just select the mother flower you want to pollinate. Select the mother flower you want to. Step two, select the father flower, okay, that you use to pollinate the mother flower. So you have to select, okay, all right. And then step three, you can use tweezers to remove the petals from the father flowers to uncover the anthers where the pollen is. Okay, so use tweezers like you can see in this photo. So here you are removing the petals, okay, so that the pollen over here on the anther will be reviewed. Okay, and then step four, hold the mother staminals. Okay, and carefully with a tweezer remove the staminals to uncover the stigma. So as you can see here, the staminals usually cover the female part of the flower. So you use the tweezers to break them off like this. Anyway, this is one option. I will discuss another option, which maybe you don't have to remove the staminals. Okay. Number five, rub the anthers of the father flower on the stigma of the mother flower so that the pollen will stick to it. Okay. So as you can see here, this is the father flower and this is the mother flower. So you are rubbing the pollen here on the stigma. So what that means is here is that on one flower, like there can be 5, 6, or even more anthers. So you can just rub 1 or 2 anthers on the stigma. Okay, so one flower, one father flower can be used to pollinate up to 3 or even 4 or even 5 mother flowers. Okay, so that is how you do it. Okay, use the forceps to remove the anther, which is the male. We are talking about the second option here. Okay, we are talking about the second option. So use the forceps or the tweezers to remove the anther, which is the male part. So you're going to pluck it out. You pluck the anther out from the flower, from the father flower. Okay, and then you rub the pollen grains on the stigma, the female part of the mother tree. Okay, so instead of removing the petals, you are going to pluck out the anther and then you rub it. After rubbing, you throw it away. You pluck another one and rub, and then you throw it away. So that is the second way of doing it. So in this case, you might not have to remove any other floral part. Okay? So you just pick the anther, which are the pollen grains, and just rub it without removing the floral parts. Okay, recommendation for established farm. So integrate plantains into the farm, plantains or bananas into the farm to promote the proliferation of midges on the farm. Okay, so you can form farmers groups or teams to pollinate one farm at a time. Usually pollination takes time. Then one person pollinating one farm can be a little boring. Okay, but if you are doing it in group, it's so much fun. Actually, you are able to move fast. In my country, that is what we do. We have two ways. The farmer will either hire people to pollinate the farm, or they will create farmers groups or teams of around 15 to 20 farmers. So 1 to 2 days, they'll go to one member's farm, they'll pollinate the entire farm. After that, they'll move to the next person until everyone in the group's farm is pollinated. Okay, and I tell you, this is able to double the yield up to 5 times. I'm not joking. I'm talking from practical experience. Okay, it's able to double the yield. Should I say double? It's able to quadruple. Quadruple is 4. Okay, so yield is usually increased after about 5 times in 1 year just by doing hand pollination. So you could also hire labor and train them, okay, to hand pollinate your farm. This is one thing you should know, that the return on investment is usually 10 times higher than the cost in pollinating the farm. So maybe you are thinking about how much you have to spend to pay people to pollinate the farm. No, if you spend 10,000 to pollinate the farm, your return on investment can be up to 100,000. No joke, from real experience. Okay, so is it worth spending 10,000 to make 100,000? The answer is yes. Sometimes some people say, oh, look, it's not practical on big farm. The question is, are you in business? Getting data determine what your need to look like. If you are into business, then understand that it's your duty to ensure that you produce the result that you're looking for on your farm. Okay, so this is why most plantations produce so little. Number one, too few pollinators in the cacao plantation. Number two, a lot of variability between the trees in the cacao plantation. Number three, pollination between the trees, incompatibility between the trees in the cacao plantation, and then lack of maintenance in the cacao plantation, and finally lots of pests and diseases. Okay, so these are some of the reasons why most plantations do not produce enough yield. Okay, so in this discussion we are going to talk about two here. Okay, so we'll talk about variability and incompatibility. Okay, so let's begin with variability. Okay, so by variability we are talking about the differences between trees on the farm. The differences between trees on the farm. So if you have too much differences between trees, okay, I mean a lot of different genetic traits on the farm, I mean the yield declines. It declines the yield. Okay, so variability in the cacao plantation is a direct result of sexual reproduction. Okay, cacao. So the problem is that when variability is not controlled, majority of the trees produce fruit. Okay, so when variability is not reduced, you have little yield on the farm. So when the variability is not controlled, most of the harvest is produced by only few trees. That is to say that 17 out of every 100 kilos are produced by 30 of every 100 trees that grow in the cacao plantation. So what that means is that 70% of the harvest is produced by 30% of the trees in the farm. So as you can see in this picture, this is a cacao plantation. However, you don't see any fruits on the trees. Okay? So this happens as a result of too much variability. Okay, so the tree here is too different from the tree here, it's too different from the tree here. So genetically, they are too different. Okay? A lot of differences in them. And when that happens, yield will decline drastically. So if you manage to turn all your trees into good producing trees, okay, after harvest you go take off a 2 week vacation with your family and enjoy the last week. Okay, so what I'm saying here is that on your farm presently, only 30% of the trees are giving you the yield you are receiving right now. That is the reality according to research. What that means is that if you are able to pollinate your farm, whereby all the trees or most of the trees become good trees, then it means you can double your yield, triple or even quadruple your yield. And then every year you'll be able to take a holiday, enjoy with your family. Yeah, as a farmer, it's possible. That would be awesome, right? Yeah, so that you don't have to stress yourself every year. I mean, you don't have good yield. Okay, so this is the good news. You can increase the number of trees and the number of, you can increase the yield of the number of trees that are good producers in the cacao plantation. Okay, so that's why we are teaching you the techniques to do that. So if let's assume that you have only 30, 100 good trees. Okay, so we are teaching you how to turn most of the trees into good producing trees so that you don't have to worry about whether you are going to have enough yield on your farm or not. As a matter of fact, I have traveled a little extensively here in the Mindanao. Okay, I've been to the Kalinan area, I've been to the Compostela area, also been to Tagum area, all the way going to Santo Tomas and all those areas. And I'm seeing the farms that are there. Honestly, they are not good producing. Number one, because the farmers don't know how to manage the farm. They don't know how to take care of the farm. Okay, they don't know how to make the trees produce become good trees. And one problem is that they put so many things on the farm. There's coconut on the farm, there's coffee on the farm, there's rubber on the farm, too many things. Okay, so the question is, what do they want from the farm? Do they want cacao? Whatever. Yeah, so if you're into cacao business, then understand that your farm needs to be taken care of as a cacao farm. Okay, so you cannot double too many things on the farm and expect your cacao to produce the yield you are looking for. Okay, so now let's talk about compatibility. Compatibility. Okay, so when compatible, when two trees are able to pollinate well together, say they are compatible. Okay, when the pollen of one tree can fertilize the flowers of another tree, then we say that the two trees are compatible with each other. Okay, so when tree A can fertilize tree B, okay, then they are compatible. Or if the flowers can fertilize themselves on the same tree, then we say they are self-compatible. What that means. But if the trees, but if the fruits and the seed routinely fail to develop, okay, from a particular cross, okay, we say that these trees are incompatible with each other. Okay, so also some trees can fertilize themselves, while others cannot. Okay, so when the pollen of the tree can fertilize the flowers of the same tree, then we say they are self-compatible. Okay, notice. But if they cannot, then we say they are self-incompatible. Okay, so take note of this. Now let's look at the photo here. So we have self-incompatible, semi, and fully compatible. So here you see that the pollen from here does not go down to fertilize the eggs here. Okay, here we see half of the sperm here, or the pollen, fertilizes half only. And then here we have all the pollen fertilizing the pollen here. So this is fully compatible, this is semi-compatible, and this is incompatible. Okay, so most cacao trees are like this. They are self-incompatible. Okay, most are like this. So they cannot fertilize themselves. So most of the pollination or most of the pods are developed as a result of cross-pollination. Okay, now caution. You must pay a lot of attention to the issue of compatibility and incompatibility on your farm. Why? Because it can really affect the production of the cacao plantation. Place in a big place. Farmers, look at me here. Pay so much attention to the issue of compatibility and incompatibility. Why? Because this alone can change and transform your farm. If you don't have to deal with this particular problem, you don't have to worry about yield on your farm. I mean, all things being equal, you don't have to worry at all about yield on your farm. Okay, so for example, some trees can produce flowers but do not produce fruits. Often this is caused by incompatibility. So as you can see on this particular tree, there are so many flowers here, but you see only two young pods. Okay, so this problem is caused by incompatibility. So to solve this problem, you need to get the flower from another tree at another side of the farm and pollinate the flowers here. If you can pollinate the flowers here, all the flowers here will become pods, and your farm is going to look drastically beautiful. Hi, it's really going to look very beautiful. Yeah, by following these things we are teaching. Okay, so if the trees in a cacao plantation are not compatible with each other or with themselves, then fewer fertilization will be a success. Okay, so this is another example. A lot of flowers, but just one pod. Okay, all right, so let's move on. So the plantation can produce many flowers but few pods. Okay, so does anyone know how to correct this problem? Now, as we can see here, imagine that every flower here is going to become a pod. Okay, let's try to count and see. Even over here alone, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, maybe up to 25 pods here alone. And here alone, and here alone. Imagine how so much fun and so much entertainment it will be to be on your farm. I mean, if you can solve this problem of incompatibility, then your flowers are not going to drop. Okay? You are going to transform the flowers into pods, and you are going to be a happy farmer. Okay, so let's look at practical farm management suggestions. Practical farm management suggestions. Okay, divide your farm into equal blocks. Okay? Closely identify areas that are yielding, and areas that are not. So you are going to divide your farm into blocks, not the areas which give high yield and not the areas that produce low yield. Okay, so you select flowers from the area that are high yielding and you hand pollinate the areas that are low yielding. Okay, so you might not have to, pollinate the entire farm. So your target is only the areas that are not giving you the yield you are looking for. You get a point? So most of the time, the low pod formation could be traced to incompatibility problems. Okay, so you get pollen from that side of the farm, and then you bring it, you pollinate this side of the farm. And because they are from different sides of the farm, you will not have compatibility problem. They are going to pollinate. They are going to pollinate. Okay, so now let's look at this example here. For example, I have this lot here. this farm plot. Okay? So I'm going to divide it into 6 plots. So we have plot 1, plot 2, 3, and plot A, B, C. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get pollen from 1 to pollinate C, and I'll get from A to pollinate 3, and I'll get from 3 to pollinate B, and I'll get from B to pollinate maybe 1. So it's just like you are getting flowers from different sides of the farm to pollinate the different aspects of the farm. Okay, let me say this, that if you want to go into cacao business, cacao farming, understand it's a business, and every business needs your attention. Okay, if you are not going to give your business the attention it needs, then it's not going to do well. It's not going to do well. Okay, so have time to work on the farm, have time to invest on the farm. And I can really tell you with all sincerity that every farm that is given enough attention produces maximum yield as much as possible. Okay, so remember, your farm is your business. Okay, so you don't wait for results, but you create a result you want on your farm. So more suggestions. The solution to incompatibility is to introduce trees that are compatible with other trees on the plantation. Okay, I'm reading this again. The solution is to introduce trees that are compatible with the trees in the farm. So how do you do it? Usually in one particular area, okay, because of a lot of genetic variation, okay, every year they self-pollinate and they self-pollination, okay, because of that, a lot of variability, okay. And what happens is you need to get pollen from another side of the farm, and then you pollinate them to ensure a lot of self-pollination and cross-pollination taking place here. In other words, they should be self-compatible as well as compatible with nearby trees. So what that means is that, assuming you are going to bring in new flowers, okay, it means that the flowers should be compatible. Yeah, and most of the time, because they are from different sides of the farm, they are going to be compatible. If not, what you have to do is to cut down the tree that produce flowers and never produce pods. Okay, and you graft them with trees that are producing a lot of yield on your farm. So you cut the branches and you grab them, or you market them, or you back them into the existing trees that are not giving you the yield you are looking for. Okay, so when buying seed, you must think about compatibility. Okay, all right. So many farmers, when they want to establish a new cacao plantation, they do not pay attention, okay, to the issue of compatibility. All right, so when usually you want seed, you ask your neighbor, okay, for seed from a tree that is very productive and that produces many pods with large seeds and other good traits. But it's also possible that, those seeds could produce trees that are not compatible with other trees on the plantation. Okay, so the fact that a mother tree produces a lot of good seeds, flower doesn't mean the seeds from the same tree are also going to give you the same kind of characteristics. Okay, the only thing is that the only way to ensure that is to use grafting or budding techniques. Okay, when you use vegetative propagation, then for sure you can transfer the trait from the mother, the trait which is good, you can transfer the same trait, okay, into another plant through vegetative propagation. But through sexual propagation, it's not really practical. Okay, so get certified seed. Okay, so it's advisable to find out where to obtain certified seeds. Usually in the Philippines, the Department of Agriculture has certified nurseries. Okay, so if you want to buy seeds, buy from certified nurseries or seedlings, buy from certified nurseries. Okay, or if you want to start your own seedlings, make sure you graft material from the farm. Okay, using those trees that are very high yielding. Okay, in that case, you can replicate the same trait into the new seedlings farm you are raising. So that's one thing you should know. Okay, so it's very, very important to know this. Okay, so uh, in those places, they select trees and without problem of compatibility. Okay, so remember that even if we cross selected trees that are compatible, the offspring of these trees will not be exactly like the mother. Okay, so I made mention this earlier. So they will also be different from each other. Okay, so how to resolve variability and compatibility on the farm? So the best way to resolve the problem of variability and incompatibility is by using reproductive techniques, okay, that do not rely on compatibility of sex cells. Okay, so like I said, you have to use vegetative propagation in raising new seedlings on the farm. So in cacao, several sexual reproduction techniques are used, such as grafting, layering, rooting, cutting, and somatic embryogenesis. Okay, so these are some of the practical vegetative methods that you can use on the farm. So, to conclude with this presentation, let me say that if you're going to incorporate natural techniques, natural pollination with artificial or hand pollination on your farm, then I can say with all confidence that your yield will double, triple, quadruple, or even you have 5 times what you are receiving on your farm. Okay, so I say it again, please. Everything you are learning or you are hearing from this webinar, make sure you put it into practice. Okay, if you put it into practice, then for sure, with all certainty, you are going to get a yield. Okay, so you still have free consultation. In case you are having any problem on your farm, you can just send us a message and we will give you a recommendation of what you need to do. We want to be your partner. We want to be your friend in your cacao business. Okay. So you have any problem, you just tell us. Send us a message. Even if we have to visit your farm, we can visit your farm. Yeah, for sure, we can visit your farm and then look at the situation in your farm and give you practical recommendation. Okay, I want to also invite you to the upcoming webinar. Okay, in the upcoming webinar, we are going to talk about cacao business models and marketing. Okay, because we have received some questions and inquiries of different farmers. Some of them they are asking how do we sell our cacao, how do we sell it? And we want to teach them how they can market the cacao and how they can generate multiple streams of income from the cacao. To be honest with you, from the cacao farm, you can as much as 10 multiple streams of income from the cacao farm. So it's not only the selling the cacao beans, but there are so many things you can do on the farm to make money. So that year long, you can have income. Okay, you can have income on your farm. So I really encourage you and I send a special invitation to you for the next upcoming webinar on September 5. Okay, so the webinar is going to be on September 5. The fee is 1,400. It's going to be 7 hours training. Unlike this training, it's only 3 hours. But in the next training, it's going to be 7 hours training. The fee is 1,400. However, we are giving a promo price of 1,100. Okay, so you can save 300 pesos if you register on time. You just have to pay 1,100. You don't have to pay 1,400. So go to our page and register for the training. Okay, get the promo price to save some money. Then learn new ways to take your farm to a new level. Okay, thank you so much for joining this webinar. Okay, so see you on September 5 for the next training. Okay, thank you and God bless.